Hello and welcome to Bible Study with Alice, and today we're on day 60, Psalm 60 of our daily psalm reading. We are reading from the ESV translation, but you're more than welcome to join us from a different translation. As you can see, we're on Psalm 60. These videos are filmed in real time. Today's date is the 2nd of January 25, and you can find the previous 59 Psalms in the playlist below. Just to make you aware before we get into Psalm 60, when I was preparing Psalm 60, there were a few words that were quite difficult to pronounce, and I'm aware that I'm going to it's going to happen. I'm aware that it's going to end well with the pronunciations of the wording. I know that I'm going to badly mispronounce them, so please no hate on me for that. Which then obviously leads into the next thing, which is the disclaimer, and that is, one, these videos are unedited and also I'll probably stumble on my wording. Now, the stumbling on my wording bit will happen with Psalm 60 because of the complexity of some of the pronunciation of the wording. Let's get started. He will tread down our foes to the choir master according to Shuhan Ubeth, a Mecham of David, for instruction when he strove with Aram Naharim and with Aram Zobath, and when Joab on his return struck down 12,000 of Edoms in the valley of Sob. And before we get into verse 1, there obviously are a few of those words that are probably, I know I probably have mispronounced them, so I do apologise. But let's get into verse 1. O God, you have rejected us, broken our defences. You have been angry, O restore us. You have made the land to quake, you have torn it open. Repair its breaches for its trotters. You have made your people see hard things. You have given us wine to drink that made us stagger. You have set up a banner for those who fear you, that they may flee to it from the bow. Salam. Start again with verse 5. That your beloved ones may be delivered, give salvation by your right hand and answer us. God has spoken in his holiness with exaltation. I will divide up Shechem and portion out the vale of Succoth. Gilead is mine, Manasseh is mine, Ephraim is my helmet, Judah is my scepter, Moab is my wash basin. Upon Edom I cast my shoe over Philistia, I shout in triumph. Who will bring me to the fortified city? Who will lead me to Edom? Have you not rejected us, O God? You do not go forth, O God, with our armies. O grant us help. Against the foe of vain is the salvation of man. With God we shall do valiantly. I think that's how you pronounce that word. It is he who will tread down our foes. So that is Psalm 60 complete. And tomorrow we will be doing Psalm 61. For new viewers, I will now explain what this bit here means, and there's also a post-it note which will explain briefly about what the psalm is all about. And there's also, before I get into it, I always have to explain this bit. So with a lot of the psalms in the book of Psalms, the time period is unknown, or a lot of them are unknown, not every single one obviously. There are a lot of psalms where the psalm is unknown. And what I mean by that is there are some psalms where they have a time period of, say for example, 1015 BC. There are obviously psalms where they don't know that, and when I say they, that is historians and scholars, and they will go by the event that could have happened. So they will understand it from that perspective of things. So what I mean is there are some psalms where a war had taken place, and that is the reason for obviously that psalm being written. But that is the event, so they might not know the exact time period that war had taken place in, but they know that that war had taken place, if that makes sense. So with Psalm 16, I'm going to move the post-it note because I didn't do this well. So it's unknown, and it was a war with Aram and Ammonites when the Ebionites attacked Israel. And why I had to move that is because I wrote this bit here first before I wrote that bit, which should be that bit first and then that bit. And if you hear a noise, that's my cat, bless her, falling out the window. So, bless her. My cat is not the graceful cat. She's a lovely cat, love her to pieces, but she's just not graceful. But yeah, so I wrote this bit here first before I wrote that bit, which should be that bit I should have wrote first and then that bit afterwards, but I didn't. So that's why I had to bring it closer, because I could not read that from here. So King David responds to a surprise attack on his army and the message that God's sovereignty remains even in times of distress. And then these bits here are the key themes during Psalm 60, which is David's grief, David's faith, God's sovereignty and God's deliverance. So before we explain this bit, I'm going to explain Selah, which was mentioned in verse 4. When my cat fell out the window, bless her, she opened the curtain slightly, so it's a bit bright now. And yeah, so in verse 4, Selah is mentioned. To find out about Selah, we're just going to go to the front of the book of Psalms. So, Selah is a rest, a pause or reflection. So, Psalms are usually, well, I say usually, it's not usually. When they were written to be sung. And, yeah, so they were written to be sung. And so it's a rest, a pause, or reflection. So when they sung the psalm, the psalmist would need to have a seat. I have mentioned it. Now, I'm not a singer, but I am a musician, surprisingly enough. And hold on one moment. Just shutting the curtain. Right, yeah, so I am a musician, but I'm not a singer. But I do occasionally participate in the church choir, and I'm quite glad that I'm part of a choir because I don't have to be heard. I can just blend in with everyone else, which is usually a good point of a choir. But when we obviously sing in a choir, or when you sing in general, you're obviously using your vocal cords, and so you need to take a rest from singing. There's also a pause, so you can just take a quick pause. Don't even have, it's not just because you want to stop singing. There's a quick pause. It's the way the psalmist has obviously wrote it, where you need a bit of a pause. And or a reflection, so you're reflecting on the previous part of the psalm. So that's what usually it means. And with the psalms, you have a choir master. Now, I have actually wrote this down about the choir master, but before we go to that, in Psalm 60, it would obviously be sung. So to the choir master according, and then obviously Shuhath Ubath, Mecum of David. And so the choir master is actually now, for the choir master in general terms, you'd think it as somebody who's in charge of the choir, the person who takes the lead of the choir. Now, in my church choir, we do have a couple of singers who are very good singers, and I'm not going to lie, they are fantastic. But they're the ones who take the lead, and then everybody else joins, kind of follows through with it, follows behind them. But that's basically like obviously modern day choir masters. But obviously we're talking about biblical times here, so the choir master is going to be slightly different, or have a slightly different role, or can be seen as different. So the choir master is known as a chief musician, which obviously, as I mentioned, is the person who is in charge, as in, like, as I said, in my church, we do have a couple of singers who are pitch perfect, and I'm not even joking when I say that. You think they should have a career in singing, but they don't. But they're very, very good singers. And we use them as, like, I guess you could say, as the choir master. Because a choir master is known as a chief musician, refers to the leader of the temple as well. So obviously the first part, known as a chief musician, that's what a choir master is usually known as. And in my church, we would use somebody as that. And then the second part refers to the leader of the temple. So obviously that's more of a biblical term there. And then obviously, I'll go back here, a Mecum of David. So I have to admit, I've come across Mecum in quite a few of the Psalms. Let's see if we can go in. So Psalm 59, to the choir master according to, do not destroy a Mecum of David. And then Psalm 50, going back on myself here. Psalm 58, to the choir master according to, do not destroy a Mecum of David. Psalm 57, to the choir master according to, do not destroy a Mecum of David. Psalm 56, to the choir master according to, the dove afar off, Tebbeneath, a Mecum of David. You kind of get where I'm going with it now. So I was thinking to myself, let's see what a Mecum actually means, if there is a meaning for Mecum. So this is what we come up with. So a Mecum is a Hebrew word, and the meaning, the true meaning of Mecum, is unknown. But it could mean a valued object, a composition worthy of engraving. The word Mecum could refer to a song or a psalm that is intended to atone for sin, guilt, or uncleanliness. But the modern terminology of, the modern meaning of, the modern Hebrew meaning, even, I'll get there at the end, of the word Mecum has come to be epigram. Now, I'm not going to lie, I'm like, what is an epigram? I don't know if I'm the only person who's never heard of it, or I'm probably the only person who lives under a rock. I don't know. I've never heard of the word epigram, so I did go on to the dictionary and looked it up, and it's a noun. I was like, okay, that's good to know, it's a noun. And it's a remark expressing an idea in a clever and amusing way. Now, obviously, that's not what a Mecum of David means. A remark to express an idea in a clever and amusing way. But if we wanted to know what the modern meaning of it, that's what it means. Obviously, there isn't an actual meaning for Mecum, but if you wanted to know what the modern meaning of Meekum, it's an epigram, and obviously an epigram is a remark expressing an idea in a clever and amusing way. Now, that's actually really, really interesting to know, because I have to admit, when I was looking at the other Psalms in the Book of Psalms, I have actually wondered what Meekum meant, and it was, obviously I've come across it in plenty of the Psalms, and I hadn't actually really properly focused on Meekum, the word Meekum. So I wanted to kind of find out about it, and that's obviously the information I've come about. Now, I'm aware that we're looking at a Bible that was written thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Now, to put into context purposes, it's like 2025 years ago since, we're looking at when Jesus was around. In context purposes, might even be longer than that, to be fair, might even be less than that, but it's around about 2,000 years ago that Jesus was actually, on earth. And then obviously then you got thousands of years before that when the Old Testament was written. So, the Old Testament period was obviously thousands of years before that, and so forth and so forth. It's just mind-blowing. So we won't go into that, but for context purposes, we are looking at a document, a book that was written thousands and thousands of years ago. So the wording is going to be completely different to what it is now, and they're not obviously going to use epigram as the modern word for Meekum, obviously, but that's it. That's basically, in the modern Hebrew word, is Meekum means epigram. Just thought it'd be quite interesting to see what the modern meanings of the Hebrew words, and that's what I come up with. And like I said, it's got no relevance really into what we're going to learn in the Bible, but sometimes it is quite interesting to understand that and understand what the modern meanings of each of the words actually mean, because like I said, if I hadn't have looked in the dictionary, I wouldn't have even know what epigram even meant. I have to admit, it's not a word that I use on a daily basis. So as it's not a word that I use on a daily basis, it's not a word that I'm going to know the meaning of. So in a way, it's kind of interesting doing this study of Psalm 60 and finding out the modern Hebrew meaning of Meekum, because I have to admit, sometimes it's quite nice to know, and sometimes we don't really want to understand that part of it. We just read a word and we don't think much more of it. So I have to admit, I did quite enjoy that little bit of this Bible study, researching what Meekum meant, because like I said, I have read that word a lot of the times as we looked, and there's more Psalms in the Book of Psalms that use the word Meekum of David. So I thought it'd just be quite an interesting situation where we can just have a quick look at what that word actually meant in Hebrew, if there is a meaning for it, which is obviously unknown, which also is fine. We don't have to know we can just use words and don't have a meaning for that word. But then at the same time, I'm thinking, what is the modern Hebrew meaning of that word? And obviously we've since discovered epigram is that modern day version. And then I was like, okay, what is epigram? And it's a noun, and it's a remark expressing an idea in a clever and amusing way, which I guess we could also redo that in reality when you think about it. In a Mark expressing an idea in a clever and amusing way. Yeah, we could use that. We could probably do that. So that is Psalm 60. Tomorrow we will be doing Psalm 61, which lucky enough isn't too long of a psalm. It's only 8 verses, so that's quite a short psalm, and really hoping it's not going to have difficult wordings like we had in Psalm 60, but we go with it. If we do, we do. If we don't, we don't. We just have to swing it. So I will now write in the day and the date, which is obviously the day 60, and this is the 2nd of the 1st, 25, which is, as I said, wow, been a new year, 2nd day of the new year. It's going to be incredible. And thank you for watching. Please like my content. Please subscribe to my channel. I really would appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel. And please turn on the notification bell so you can get updates of content that gets uploaded to the channel. Thank you and goodbye.